just listen. Tell me why them Sigmas keep winning. Tell me why them blue boys always trending. It's like the love for us is never ending. Yeah, you know that we like to run the table, but we never do it for the fame, no. We the people's frat, man, it ain't no fable. But listen, we don't even care about the label. Listen, everything we do is for a purpose. We real down to the core, not just the surface. We for the people, man, y'all just need to learn this. And that's brotherhood, scholarship, and service. Come on, come on. Phi Beta Sigma, got the soul. Can you believe it? The greatest frat was started by 3 men, and we not gonna let nobody prevent. Our achievement is no secret. That there's some people out there that wanna pretend, but it's alright, you can pretend.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Theo Fowles, the Western Region Director of Education, here, soon to be joined by a couple of members of our education team here in Los Angeles. We're excited to present to you this event where we're going to be going over the new details and best practices of the FASFA. This is all about the form that's going to help you get financial aid. And so we don't pretend to be experts in everything. And when we need to get that information, we ask the experts to come in. And so this evening, we have Miss Brenda High, who is the founder and the executive director of a nonprofit called the ScholarshopMom, whose mission is to help students to become college, career, and scholarship ready. She's known to provide tips, tricks, strategies for parents and for students through her website, ScholarshopMom.org. She's assisted hundreds of students in obtaining full rides to college as well. And so as we bring her up, Mrs. High, it's good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Good stuff, good stuff. And so wanted to give you a moment to introduce yourself or to say anything else in addition to that intro before we hop right into this information about how we can get to know this new FASFA.
Thank you. About me, I just want to give you a little bit of background about what I've been doing. This is something I'm very passionate about. I've been involved in this work over 15 years. I've worked as a history teacher. In fact, my first teaching job was in Pasadena, California. I'm currently an independent counselor, an educational consultant. I work with a lot of different high school districts. I'm actually now in the Chicago area. I'm a career counselor, college career and scholarship coach. I've had my 15 years, as I mentioned. I'm a blogger and currently executive director of a newly formed nonprofit, ScholarshopMom.
Awesome. So we wanted to make sure that people know that they can ask their questions. If you're watching live here on YouTube, you can ask your questions right in the chat. Just for example, we'll kick the conversation off just with this one right off top. Dr. Lawrence Bradford, frat brother that is here in LA. He said, will the new FASFA be out in December 2023 or January 2024? We'll start that right off.
The new FAFSA is coming out sometime in December. That's all I can tell you. Hopefully by mid-December.
Awesome. Which is exactly
actually they're still working on it, working out the fine details. So they're saying mid-December.
Awesome. Perfect.
Of 2023.
Perfect. So December of 2023 is what we should be looking out for. So parents, students, get ready. to have your information set. And so we'll hop right on in. We'll share your slides here and get the conversation started.
Okay. My goal this evening is to help you get ready for the new FAFSA. But in addition, I want to be able to help you understand the why and how these changes can impact you personally. There's a difference between just sitting down doing something, doing a FAFSA, but not understanding why you're doing it and what kind of impact you're going to have. And so with the new changes coming, it's going to be very important that you have an understanding of how it's going to impact you personally. And also, I want to take the angst and the fear out of the process. The FAFSA has been reduced. It's going to be about 50 questions, but every question is going to have particular meaning. So you're going to make sure that you really understand how you address those questions. My research for this workshop, I've been doing FAFSA ready workshops and getting myself ready. I've gathered information from the federal government, from the National College Attainment Networks Association, and also the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which is very similar to the California Student Commission. And so I want you to be very proactive in getting this information early, because this is going to help you and your peers and your family members. So the agenda for this evening, I'm going to be give you an overview of the financial aid and FAFSA process, talk about the types of financial aid, the new FAFSA requirements, the importance of the FSA ID, FAFSA tips, resources, and then we'll have questions at the end. The financial aid process. One of the first things we need to understand about the FAFSA is that it is free. It stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And their website is fafsa.gov. And it's going to be opening in mid-December. Another important document that also needs to be filed, which is actually available as of October, is the CSS profile. And this is an application that's usually used by more competitive schools, your Ivy League schools, some of your private institutions. And this is an application that's also important to be aware of if you are applying for those schools, because in addition to the FAFSA, you will also need to complete this. This organization stands for the College Scholarship Service, CSS, and their goal is to give you money. A lot of private institutions have tons of money to give away, but they're going to go into a deeper dive into your personal financial situation. So they're going to ask for more deeper information than the FAFSA would. But just be aware that if you're applying to a school like that, and they'll tell you that on the financial aid page whether they require that you should make sure you get that in also. Another place to look for scholarships, one of the main places, is the actual school itself. And this is where I find a lot of students miss out. Every college has a scholarship page, and you really should be looking at that scholarship page to find out what other scholarships are available at the institution, because they're usually tied to a particular deadline date. And that deadline is somewhere between November 1st and November 15th. This is where you can get full tuition, half full tuition, in some cases full rides. And a lot of students miss out on looking at what's available at the institution. So that's another place to look. Make sure you go back. If you've got your college list together, you need to go back to the scholarship page and see if there's scholarships that you can apply for additional funding. And these are usually merit-based scholarships, not based on income. Also, be sure to check each individual school's website to find out what forms are required and when they must be filed. So in addition to the FAFSA, always go back to your school website and find out what else has to be completed. Because if you have outstanding information that's not submitted to the school, that's going to hold up your aid package. Now, the types of financial aid, this is where the money comes from. It's going to come from grants, which is need-based money that you don't have to repay. It's going to come from scholarships, which are merit or performance-based, which you don't have to pay back. Some of you students will be eligible for work study, which is need-based campus job earnings that you'll directly get. And then federal loans. We don't want to go there, but they're there to help you complete your college education financially if you don't have full funding. And so this is where the money is. Our focus at ScholarshopMom is on grants and scholarships, in the work study. We don't want to go there because our goal is to help students graduate debt-free. And so we do everything in our power to help students to lessen their loan and not have to take out a loan. I'll talk more about that as we go on. So the FAFSA simplification goals, the reason for simplifying the FAFSA is that they wanted to make applying for it easier and more streamlined, which they've done. Full implementation goes into effect for the 2024-2025 award year. It will reduce the number of questions a student and family will answer. The Student Aid Index, now known as SAI, will replace what was originally known as the expected family contribution, or the EFC. So there's no more, for those of you who've already had years of experience in completing the FAFSA, there's no more EFC. The terminology now is SAI, which stands for Student Aid Index. And it also amends the federal Pell Grant program. So the calculations for determining who gets a Pell Grant is totally different from what we were used to having in previous years. The roles of students and parents are key in terms of the changes that have occurred on this particular new FAFSA. Now, each person entering information on the FAFSA is now considered a contributor. And the government looks at the student being the main contributor. The government has always, classified the FAFSA as the student's FAFSA, but now they're really, making a point that it is. Each student will invite someone else to contribute to the form. So they will complete their section first and then invite the parent. Students will submit the contributor's name, email, date of birth, and social security number. Students can only complete the student section. Parents can only complete the parent section. Dependent students will not see a submit button until the parent section is complete. Getting started, these are some of the browsers that work effectively with the government websites. You have Google Chrome, Mozilla, and Firefox, and Apple Safari, because sometimes people can have problems with that. So make sure you get on the right browser. If you're having trouble, check your browser, but these are the ones that will work with the federal program. We have some new terms, as I mentioned earlier. What was previously known as the expected family contribution, EFC, is now the Student Aid Index. The Student Aid Report, although used to be known as the SAR, now it's going to be known as the FAFSA Submission Summary. And this is a report, actually a copy of your FAFSA. So when you complete the FAFSA, there's a report that you can actually access to print out and review to see if there are any errors. But that's now going to be known as the FAFSA Submission Summary. So it's going to be a summary of everything that you could put on the FAFSA. And this is a real important document. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later, because sometimes students just do the FAFSA and they don't look at the report. They don't look and see if there are any errors. And so you need to understand that this document needs to be reviewed and making sure that there aren't any errors that need to be corrected. The IRS data retrieval tool will now be known as a direct data exchange. So what's happening now is the data that used to come from the IRS for taxes is now going to be turned over to the Department of Education. And they will be responsible for submitting that information to your FAFSA, not the IRS. The IRS is like saying, here, now you're going to do this. And so now it's going to be known as the Direct Data Exchange, the DDX. Household size was the old term that was used for the FAFSA. The new term is going to be family size, which is the same term that's used for the IRS. So what do you need? Before I go to this section, I just want to clarify something about the roles of students and parents. Parents can start the FAFSA and provide most of the student information. The parent then can invite the student, or the student can invite the parent. So whoever starts the FAFSA, if the student starts it, he or she invites the parent. If the parent starts it, then the parent can invite the student. Paid preparers are not allowed to complete the form. and the forms will be deleted after 45 days. So before you sit down to do the FAFSA, you really need to have all your paperwork, have your, agreement with people that what they're going to do their part. They're going to make sure that they're going to okay to submit their taxes. So that's going to be very important, because if you're not ready, you don't want stuff sitting there, because after 45 days it will be deleted.
And Mrs. High, I have a quick question. Jumping in here before we get back to the slides. I know that there were some terms in terms of like household going into family size, right? Are there particular definitions around household or family that people should know about? How they're defining family? Some folks they might be going through the foster care system or things like that, where these relationships aren't apparent. So, are there any other definitions that folks should be aware of as they fill out these forms?
When you actually go through the FAFSA, I've already seen a demo of it. It will explain in detail what those definitions are, depending upon what you select. So that's a good thing. It's going to explain everything. I don't know exactly from a memory what they are, but they do have a drop-down menu where they will actually define what they mean by family size, and what a family. And I'm going to touch a little bit on that a little bit later in one of the other upcoming slides. But yeah, that will all be explained.
Awesome. Let's get back into these slides of what do we need?
Okay, you will need your FSA ID. And hopefully you've done that. You really should complete, seniors, you should complete your FSA ID as soon as possible. And the reason for that is that in order to do the FAFSA, you have to have your FSA ID, you and one parent. And so you want to go ahead and get that taken care of as soon as possible. I will show you a slide where I have the link and some information on how you can do that if you don't know how to do it. Because if there's a problem with Social Security numbers or any kind of problem, you don't want to be doing this close to the time when you're supposed to do the FAFSA, and it's just going to cause problems. And because everything is new this year. It's going to be new for the financial aid administrators. It's going to be new for your counselors. It's going to be new to the parents. It's new to everybody. So it's new. So with that, we're going to have some hiccups. So you want to try to avoid situations where you're going to be stuck because something didn't, you didn't do something early enough. So really, if you haven't done it, do it this weekend and get it done. They're also going to be asking for your Social Security number, the 2022 tax return. This is prior year. And one way to remember is that with the year that you're going into school, which is 2024, going forward, you just subtract 2 years. Oh, I need the 2022 return. Okay. So if it's going to be, you go into school in 2025, you subtract 2 years. Oh, I need the 2023 return, because it gets kind of confusing, but it's prior year. So you'll be using the information from the 2022 tax return. You need records of untaxed income, records of assets, and a list of schools. Now you're allowed to put on your application up to 20 schools, whereas previously you can only list 10, and then you had to wait a few days, and then you had to go back in, and then list your schools really after you have gotten that student aid report. And so now so this is different. So you can list up to 20 schools, and I don't really see any reason why you should have more than that, but you can list up to 20. 2024-2025 school year. This is very important. When you go on the FAFSA, and they have clarified it, because before they just had the 2023-24 school year, and that's the current year for FAFSA. And some people are getting confused. I've heard stories of counselors who have had students already apply for the FAFSA. And I'm like, what? It's not even October 1st. How did that happen? But you're applying for the 2024-2025 school year. And when you go to the FAFSA.gov site, they're very explicit about explaining which year you need to apply. So hopefully you won't have any problems, but it's the 2024-2025 school year. That's the school year that you should be checking the box for. Eligibility requirements: a high school diploma, GED, or homeschool. U.S. citizenship or eligible non-citizen, be enrolled or accepted for enrollment, be pursuing a degree, certificate, or credential, maintain satisfactory academic progress. And that means that a lot of schools will, for federal money, schools will designate a certain GPA. If you're getting federal money, the expectation is that you will maintain a certain GPA, and they will tell you what it is. In most cases, it may be like a 2.0. So if your GPA drops below that, you could be in jeopardy of losing your federal funding. And that's something students really need to be aware of, because, if you're not going to class, you're out there partying, you're having a good old time, you need to protect your GPA. And you should be reading the catalog to find out when the add drop deadline is, or when you can withdraw, because a W or an incomplete is better than an F. So make sure you're aware of that. That's your responsibility to taking care of your business, but you don't want to be in jeopardy of losing your federal money. For the student and the parent. If the parents are married filing jointly, only one parent needs to complete the FSID. If married filing separately, both parents will need to complete an FSAID. The FSID will replace the signature page, so it's very important. So this is going to be like your new identity number, in a sense, going forward. And it should be created before beginning the FAFSA, as I indicated. Reporting tax information. Through the direct data exchange, everyone will be required to provide consent for their tax information to be shared by the IRS with the federal student aid, including non-tax filers. And so this is what I was saying, that this is coming through the Department of Ed. So because it's coming through the Department of Ed, they're going to be needing your permission to submit, to give this information. So for non-tax filers, the IRS will report no tax return is on file. They'll confirm that if you're not filing taxes. Each parent must provide consent if their filing status is married filing separately, or unmarried but living together. So if that's the case, you still would have to provide consent under those marital situations. If no consent is provided, a student's student aid index will not be calculated. So this is very important. And there will be several, if you don't complete this as you're going through the FAFSA, there will be several little notes that pop up reminding you that you need to give consent if you haven't done that. That's why, it's going to be very important that, because we do have parents who may not want to give up their information, or they don't want their kids to know what they got or whatever. But you need to get all that stuff straight beforehand. And as far as agreeing that, you need to submit your stuff and get permission, because if permission is not granted, a student will be ineligible for federal financial aid. That's how serious this part of the application is. So make sure you talk to your parents. Everybody agree that, yes, I'm going to do this, and, do it on the day when, everybody's in agreement and can do it, and not have any issues, because you don't want to be in the middle of doing the FAFSA and then just like, oh, I'm not doing that. So try to get all that stuff straight ahead of time.
And Mrs. High, I wanted to jump in. We have Brother Odie Mitchell, who is the Director of Education for the Los Angeles Alumni Chapter of Phi Beta Sigma here as well. I know he's a parent. He has kids that are looking to get to that next level and go to college and all those type of things. And so wanted to really understand from your perspective, Odie, maybe you can have a conversation really quickly around what are some of the hesitancies you might have as a parent, as you're delving into these aid forms and some of the things that make you nervous about this form, especially knowing that, you have to give permission, and also your child as well, your student. Brother Mitchell, I can't hear you. Let's see. Let's see if you refresh. Can you refresh yourself and maybe you'll pop back in? But in the meantime, in between time, we did have a question come in from YouTube that I'll put on the screen here that says, if you have 2 students in college, do you do a separate FAFSA for each student? That's again from Brother Dr. Lawrence Bradford.
Yes, the answer would be yes.
Awesome. Good stuff, good stuff.
How about now? Can you guys hear me now?
Perfect. Sounding
Great,
loud.
great. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much for having us today or participating in our FAFSA workshop today. And yes, thank you, Dr. Files, for highlighting some of the questions that a lot of parents may have when starting this. So if I understand it correctly, in order for this whole like transaction to take place, the parent and the child both have to sign off to agree to the FAFSA form. Is that what I understand, or did I misunderstand it?
Well, it's not the form. It's the IRS information.
Oh, the IRS information.
So
Okay.
the student will be signing off the fact that they're a non-tax filer because they have to confirm that.
See.
And as I go along, you're going to see why that's important. That's they have to confirm the fact that your student is a non-tax filer, but they also have to get permission for the Department of Ed to have that IRS information transferred, because before it was done directly through the IRS. They would just do it electronically. But now that responsibility has been transferred to the Department of Ed. And so they're wanting to have people provide consent for them to send that information.
I see. So just really quickly then, if I may, understanding that today's dynamic of young people, like some of these young people are making making a living, making money by being, YouTube influencers, by doing all kinds of stuff. Like, what is the age at which, or what is the allowable income, if you know, where a student may need to file independently, and how will that help them or hurt them? Is that, if I'm asking that clearly, like, say if a student through their influencing and videos and all that stuff, and they're 17 or approaching 18, and they make like $50,000 a year, by all means, they don't need their parents' income. So would they be able to apply and file independently, with income at that level? If that's a good question, I hope it is.
Oh, it's a very good question, and I'm going to address that question in one of my slides, because that's one of
great.
That's one of the areas where people get really confused about independent, dependent. But just briefly, I'm just going to tell you, as long you're a dependent student up until the age of 24, unless there's certain circumstances, and I will address those circumstances in the upcoming slide.
Great, thank you so much.
No matter how much money they make, if they're 17, they're still considered a dependent student.
Absolutely. They just think they're grown.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me step back then, and I'll allow you to continue. And thank you so much for being here. And this presentation has been very informative.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so this is key for the FAFSA parental information. This actually has not changed, but people still get confused about this. Who is a parent has not changed. Parents, according to FAFSA, are adoptive parents, biological parents, step parents if married to a biological or adoptive parent. So if both parents, biological or adoptive, are unmarried but living together, you have to report information for both. For parents who are divorced or separated, a student will report the parent who provides the most financial support. Now, this is a new change, because previously it was the parent who, if the kid, the parent reported who the kid spent the most time with, or or the parent whose income may have been lower. But now the rule is it's the parent who provides the most financial support. It doesn't matter where they live or who the child spends the most time with. So that's a change from the previous form. But you need to understand that the parent is not auntie, it's not grandma, and it's not grandpa. And we have a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandkids, or they're living with them. And so I always tell people that for purposes of the FAFSA, and this is the area that kind of breaks my heart, when a grandparent is raising the grandchild, and they feel responsible for their education to the tune of either going into their retirement money, or putting a house on the market to try to get these kids money. But remember what I said, they are not the biological parent. And so if you're not the biological parent, you're not responsible for paying for that particular student. And so the FASFA has made, has some suggestions or rules regarding that. And so one of the things is that if a student is in that situation and they're being taken care of by somebody else, ideally, you should go to the court and get the paperwork that says that you are the legal guardian. You become the guardian of that student. Because if you become the guardian of the student, that means this is one of those areas where that student will be an independent student. And that student, you will not have to submit your income. So I always run into people who are in this situation because they don't know that you may just want to go get the paperwork done, so that you're not in you don't need to be responsible for paying for this because of the fact that you're not the biological parent. So that's a key thing to be aware of. For parents who are divorced or separated, again, a student will report the parent who provides the most financial support. Now we're going to talk about what makes an independent student. So these are the areas where students can be an independent student if they're not 24. If they have children or other people who live with them and receive more than half of their support from the student, you got one of these students who's making all this money and they're supporting people between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. If they're doing that, then they could be possibly considered independent. Since the age of 13, both parents are deceased, in foster care, or ward of the court. That student would be an independent student. Emancipated minor, those students who have gone to the court and said, hey, I don't want to be with these people, I'm going to be on my own, but you still have to go through the court and get the paperwork. They would be considered independent. Currently, or was in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step-parent. We have people, neighbors, all kinds of people can become a legal guardian. And so those students will become independent. Students who are homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless, they would be considered independent. Now, the risk of being homeless is not, we have students, you don't necessarily have to be living in a homeless shelter. We have students that bounce around from place to place to place. They're sleeping on sofas. They're going over this person's house, or they're running over here, they're running over there. They're at risk of being homeless. So that information would need to be shared with the financial aid office, and they would most likely make that student an independent student. If you're a veteran or serving active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces, you're independent. So the year to look for is 24. Otherwise, 24 years of age as of January 24. Then you become an independent student. Mm-hmm. Unusual circumstances. We have unusual and special circumstances that the financial aid office has to take a second look at. And these are areas where, the students or parents are incarcerated or deceased. They had to leave home due to an abusive family environment. And all this stuff has to be documented. You can't just leave the house because you got an argument with your mommy and your daddy, and you go off somewhere and stay with your friend. That's not going to get it. So you got to have, if it's abusive, then there's probably somebody else that's going to have to document that, your counselor or a minister or somebody else who can corroborate the abusiveness. Unsure of the parents' whereabouts. We have kids, who don't know where their parents are. Homeless, self-supporting, or at risk of being homeless, like I said, on or after July 1st, 2023, or the victim of human sex trafficking. So these are situations where the financial aid office is going to really, if the student answers yes to any of these questions under FAFSA, they will automatically be considered a provisionally independent student. Now, this part is new because previously, if a student had issues with any of these areas, they didn't get to address it until after the FAFSA was sent in. Then they had to go in online or something and fill out a form or something to let them know about their circumstance. That was the route they took. That's no longer going to be the case because with this new FAFSA, if a student selects yes to any of these situations, they will automatically be considered a provisionally independent student. So what that means is they're going to get flagged, and the financial aid office is going to take a look at their stuff and say, well, okay, we got to take a look at this, and then they will contact the student and ask them to provide the documentation. That's going to be a lot better for a lot of people because some people have fallen through the crack. They didn't know the process. I don't know if you've gone on school websites and seen what the requirements are for filling out that stuff. It's very difficult to even figure out how to fill out some of those forms. So now this is going to be incorporated into the FAFSA so that the students can select this category and they will be considered provisionally independent, and then they will have a follow-up with the financial aid office to confirm it. So the financial aid offices are going to have more discretionary power. They're going to have a lot more power to determine who gets what and how much by making these decisions that they have to make. And so that's going to be a little bit different. So it's going to be new for them. And like I said, everybody's learning. Everything is new. So we're all learning this. But I'm hopefully we're giving you a heads up so if somebody you hear something, because you're going to be hearing there's a lot of misinformation out there floating around about the FAFSA, a lot. And so you want to make sure that you get correct information.
And Ms. Sai, but before I wanted to pause there for a moment, as you were talking about all these unusual circumstances, and I want people to really realize that what are deemed as unusual circumstances aren't that unusual in our community, right? More often than not, we have students that fit these buckets, right? And so,
Right.
as we're in our high schools, right? As we're in our higher ed institutions, be on the lookout for folks that fit these areas, these experiences, especially because it seems like in this new FAFSA, with them being able to identify these circumstances early, it could give them access to additional resources ahead of time versus,
Right.
versus getting to campus
Right.
and then trying to figure out what resources are available to you, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yes. And so I know Brother Mitchell works at a higher ed institution. I've worked at a higher ed institution in the past. And I think one of the things to really emphasize, to our folks that are watching is really to kind of break away some of the stigma around some of these unusual circumstances, right? Be able to tell your story so that you can get the proper support, even in a forum like this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you raised a great point, Dr. Fowles. And so, sometimes when we look at this, if students are understanding the resources that are available, and if their overall grand intention is to go into education, in the best way possible, to be the best way prepared, both mentally and financially, and psychologically, and all those things where money kind of makes it a little bit easier when you have greater access to resources. It can definitely determine your outcome, whether you're going to be successful or not as successful. We definitely want our young people to go in there with the goal of preparing themselves for completion and complete success.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's very important. So I'm really happy about that change. That's really great.
Well, let's jump back on into the slides here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Student Aid Index, which used to be called the EFC, is going to be determined by these factors: your federal tax information, assets. Those of you who make over $60,000 will have to report your assets, family size, and this number now. Remember, we're used to having an expected family contribution or EFC of 0. We still have that as 0, but now that number can go as low as negative 1,500. So if you're between a 0 and a negative 1,500, this is according to their new calculations, this is going to make you eligible for certain funding. And so these are the areas where they're going to calculate all this stuff with their new formula. And I'm not a financial aid administrator, so I don't have to deal with that because that's way above my pay grade. But they're going to be, crunching these numbers and coming up with what, where you fall. Mm-hmm. And students with an SAI or student aid index of 0 or below will be eligible for the full Pell Grant, which is currently $7,395. Okay, which is, that's a nice chunk of money. And so this is going to be really important for you. And I'm going to talk about in another slide, when we talk about students working, because we have some situations where parents are Pell Grant eligible and, the students are working because they need to work to help support the family. But in some cases, they working too much and they making the parent, not be eligible for the Pell Grant. So you're going to have a strategy as to when you're going to start doing this work in order to, if you're going to be wanting to get, federal money. Students not required to file taxes will automatically receive a negative 1,500 SAI. Let me repeat that. Students not required to file taxes will automatically receive a negative 1,500 SAI. So this is where I'm talking about strategy. Remember, we're looking at prior year income. And so you need to think about, okay, in my freshman and sophomore year, how many hours should I be working? Or when you should work, because particularly for underclassmen. And so when you think about it, I feel that, our students who are ninth graders, the ninth grade parents, they, even eighth grade going into high school, but certainly in ninth grade, they need to be, with this new FAFSA, they're going to be needing to know this kind of information early so they can kind of like plan their strategy of what they're going to do. You'll see that as we go on, why that's important. So reporting investment income. So investment questions will not be asked for those who make less than $60,000 a year, for parents of dependent students or independent students. So if you make less than $60,000, they're not going to ask for investment questions. Or from anyone in the household who has received a means-tested federal benefits program within the previous 24 months. And I'll go over what those programs are. They're measured against the federal poverty guidelines. And here it comes up again. A student with a negative SAI will not ask for investment questions. So I think that's the third area where they've kind of mentioned something about that negative FFI students. So in this case, you will not have to answer the investment questions. If you're required to report investments, you have to report the net worth of any business and or family farm. That's a change. You have to exclude the home in which the student or family live in. That's excluded. But you do have to report any child support received for the most recent calendar year if you are required to report investments. Now, these are the federal programs where it allow you to not have to be exempt from investment questions. You earn income tax credit if you're getting federal housing assistance, free and reduced lunch for Title I schools, Medicaid, Qualified Health Plan, the Affordable Care Act, SNAP, WIC, SSI, and TANF. Now, I want to go back to the free and reduced lunch. The question on the FAFSA is, have you attended? Do you attend a Title I school? Now, you need to know if you attend a Title I school, because most of those schools, everybody gets free lunch. It's my understanding. So if you're attending a Title I school, and maybe you're a you could be a middle income family attending a Title I school, and you still, that means you're getting free and reduced lunch, because everybody gets free and reduced lunch. So, but the question on the FAFSA again, free and reduced, if you are attending a Title I school and you're getting free and reduced lunch, then you would be exempt from reporting reinvestment income. Okay. Now, this is the form you're going to get when you actually complete the FAFSA. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to have the completion date when you did it. This is the data release number, the DRN number. You have to call into the 800 number. They're going to have a little number. This is going to be a number that identifies you in your application. So that's what that number is for. And then they're going to have your estimated student aid index. This is going to be a number, we don't know, whatever it is, but that used to be the EFC. But this is what their estimated, once they do all the calculations and everything, they're going to give you, that number will be in here. And then it says the SAI is not a measure of how much student aid you'll receive or how much you'll pay for college. Schools use your SAI to determine your federal student aid eligibility. Now, they said that on all the previous FAFSA forms, but, in my years of reviewing, dealing with financial aid and FAFSA, whatever your EFC was previously or the SAI on that form, that's pretty much what they used. And I think they have this statement here because, once again, it's kind of like a statement where, okay, they can pretty much do what they want when it comes to giving aid to whoever they want to give it to. If they want you at your college, and this is why I tell students, it's very important that when you complete that application, you're filling out your college application, you make them want you. Because if they want you, they're going to give you money. And if they really want you, they're going to go back and find some more money for you to stay there. So that's very important. So based on the eligibility criteria, you're going to see this. You may be eligible for a federal Pell Grant, and they'll tell you how much you can get. You may also be eligible for other federal, state, or institutional grants, scholarships, and work study. Remember that slide I showed you? That's where the money is. It's federal, state, or institutional grants. Now, with this estimated student aid index, what's also not on here, this is just a short form, but they're also going to tell you that you are eligible to apply for a loan in the amount of $5,500. Okay, seniors, I want you to listen to this. They're gonna offer you $5,500 as a college freshman, and this is the beginning of getting into student loan debt, because they're going to offer it, but you don't have to take it. Now, most people are going to take it because they're going to need it, for whatever reason, to fulfill their bill. But I feel that if students knew early enough that this is their loan in their name, it's not their parents' loan, this is their loan in their name, and this is where students are introduced to student loan debt. I feel, because I'm in the scholarships, students should be able, in 4 years, be able to find $5,500 in scholarships. Or if they're working, they should be able to save some money, at least pay, take on half the loan, not the whole thing, to be able to reduce their loan. And then once you get to college, you can still look for scholarships. They're out there. So I'm all about people keeping their loan ratio low, but young people don't know this. They don't know that $5,500 is going to come in their name. And they don't know that that's where the student loan crisis starts, really. And so it's very important that they understand that, because if they know that they're going to have to pay something, I would think that if they're working, that they would have another fund that says, you know what, and some parents, would say, well, I'm going to cover that. Well, that's fine if you can afford to cover it. But still, even if you didn't have, the student should be willing to do this to find the money so that you don't even have to cover it. That $5,500 could be used for something else. All right, that's my little sermon on that. Let me go to the next.
And before you get to that slide, wanted to talk about scholarships a bit, right? So would you say that $5,500 is a good goal for most students to shoot for in terms of the amount of scholarships they want to attain before stepping foot on a college campus? Is that a easily
Yes,
attainable goal for most
I think
students?
it's
How would you
obtainable,
qualify?
particularly, they want, okay, this is what they want. They want a 3.0 higher GPA, most scholarship
Mm-hmm.
people. And that's what most colleges want. They want you to have been involved in something. They want you to have volunteered. That's what scholarship people want. So if you fit that criteria, yeah, you should be able to find the scholarships. And I don't think, even if you're, just, you have birthdays and people giving you birthday money, maybe you should just put some of that money on, because this is another way of helping out your parents, but it's helping you to at least not have to take out the full amount. You can take half of it. Just say, I'm going to try to save $2,000. That means you only got $2,500 left. If you're going to do that, that's better than $5,500. So the idea is to think about how you can, if you are going to take out a loan, how you can keep it low. What can you do to lessen that loan amount? Because we all know in 4 years, you're going to get this big balloon payment. And then you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm in debt.
It's a
Yeah,
setup.
that the information that you provide, I guess I've never heard it presented in quite that way. So when you think about, like, if a student has to take out, a loan of any amount, they should be looking at trying their best to pay it off, while they're in school. Like you said, if they have money resources from working,
Mm-hmm.
applying for other scholarships. So one of the things I was going to ask, though, I know we're a lot of this stuff for financial aid is talking about new students, but what about the likelihood of continuing education students who, because we're not talking about just the first year, of course,
No. Mm-mm.
FASFA, you're going to be involved. This is going to be an ongoing process. So,
Right.
how can continuing education students also keep an eye on keeping their debt low and then their opportunities high? Like, what would you recommend students do um, to make sure that they're, putting themselves in the best position to get the money that they need for college?
Well, it's the same criteria. 3.0 higher GPA. Okay. Because that's what internship people want. If you want an internship, they're looking for the people with the 3.0. And so you can always go back to your department. We got departmental scholarships, depending upon where within your department, it asks they give additional monies. And I've got,
Hmm.
I do scholarship workshops, and I tell students, there's so much money out there for continuing college students, but they don't seem to know that. They just tend to go back to the financial aid office and take out a loan because I guess it's easy. And it is work applying for scholarships while you're in college, but they are
Hmm.
available to people. They are. And that's another thing they seem not to know how to do for whatever reason. They can do all this other stuff. They can get online and research hairstyles and shoes and this and that and other thing. But
Oh
when it
my
comes to
God.
a scholarship, they're like, what? How do I do that?
Hmm.
So, if you have a need, but to me, our young people we have too many students who are financial aid illiterates. We have a lot of workshops
Hmm.
and people doing financial literacy, but we don't have a lot of people doing financial aid literacy. That's where I see an area that needs to be dealt with early, because that's where people can get in some serious trouble. And so they need to know,
Excellent point.
yes, I can go and you know, because this money is in my name. A lot of them don't even understand that it's in their name. They really don't. Or, and so that's really important, because, I feel like nobody should have to go into debt to get educated. I really do. And so that's my thing. And so I try to help students avoid a little bit. That is okay, but not a whole bunch. And that's
Right.
something that people can control. But if they know, they got to have a strategy, they got to start early, and then they got to know what they're going to do. And so there are a lot of factors in that. But generally speaking, and then when they go take out the loan, they take out too much. They don't need all that stuff.
Hmm.
And then they go buy a car, they go do this, or they buy clothes. And in some cases, depending upon how you do that academically, they end up running out of money. Oh, I don't have any more. And so it's just, it's a lot of education that needs to be dealt with in terms of helping them understand exactly what they're doing and how important that is.
Perfect,
Okay.
perfect. I know we have
Great point.
a little bit of slides left to go, and we got some good questions coming in.
Okay.
I did see someone ask the slides we made available, and that this information was really great. I know that we'll take the time to make sure that these slides are available for the folks that are listening to share with friends and family as well. But wanted to hop right back into those slides to keep us moving as well.
Okay, we're almost there. Okay, cost of attendance. Now, this is something that's going to be very helpful. The education department now has the authority to regulate what is included in a school's cost of attendance, except for tuition and fees. So this is like an expanded list now of what should be included in cost of attendance. And now I don't know if you've gone on, some schools' website. I ask students all the time, do you know how much it's going to cost? And they're like, they give me this look like, no. Okay, well, how do you know how much money you need if you don't even know what it's going to cost? But they have expanded what should be included in the cost of attendance now. It's room and board, books and supplies, dependent care, your self-care, study abroad expenses. Transportation expenses will now include travel between home, school, and work. It used to just be home and school, but now they're including home, school, and work. The federal student loan origination fees. If you take out a loan, you got to pay those little fees. So that should be included in the cost of attendance. The cost of professional licensing or certification or professional credentials for certain majors. So now the Department of Ed is requiring all schools to disclose all elements of the cost of attendance on their website, where information about tuition and fees are reported, because this is another area where people have kind of lost sight of really what it's going to cost to go to school. And some schools are really good at putting out this information, and others, you got to look and figure out. I don't like it when they tell you, well, X amount of credits, you got to pay this much, or this amount of credits you got to pay. It's really hard for kids to figure that stuff out. So this is going to be more delineated, so people can have an idea of actually, okay, you got to pay tuition and fees, but what else are you going to have to pay to factor in your cost of attendance to really determine how much it is you're going to have to pay. So I think that's a helpful thing. And so they're going to be required to put this information. And so because of the changes, I know students, you senior students, some of you have already submitted your applications, but you really need to be going back. And those of you who are juniors, or even if you're still doing college fairs and admission people are coming to your school, this is a question you need to be asking about, is this information, what is your cost of attendance posted on your website? How much does it cost to go there, and is it on your website? That's one of those questions you probably need to be asking as we speak. Okay. Already up here. So basically what you need to know about your student aid index is that it's going to be determined by family size, federal tax, and the assets reported on the FAFSA. Now, this is a huge change right here. The number in college does not impact the student aid report, because it used to be if you had 2 or 3 kids in college, you could divide this, but that's no longer available. But remember, students who don't work get that negative 1,500. All right. So you can, your negative 15, the amount could be as low as negative 1,500 for the SAI. And students with SAI or at 0 or below will be eligible for the full federal Pell Grant. Now, you need to know how your school determines need. Most schools will base your need on the cost of attendance. They'll take the amount from the student aid index from the FAFSA, and they'll also subtract the amount of any other financial assistance you're getting, like from a scholarship, outside scholarships, and then they will come up with a number, and that will be what you need for you to pay out of pocket or attend that school. Now, need is based on, when you get your FAFSA. I'm concerned about the number of families that I've worked with whose income was 0, who had a 0 EFC, or, in this case, it might be a negative 1,500, but I'm just going from previous years where, the family had an EFC of 0. And when they got their award letter, now with award letters, I read hundreds of award letters, and I would say 90% of them have an error in them. But you, the average person, parent, would not know that. If you don't know what's supposed to go in there, how do you know it's accurate? That's a whole nother thing that I've noticed. But, award letters do have errors. And so you'll see, I've seen numerous award letters where a family has a 0 EFC, and then they tell them apply for the parent loan. And that makes no sense to me. So if you're at a school that does that, you really need to go back to the financial aid office and appeal your situation, because they're going to put it out there. And so if you've got a 0 EFC, that means you don't have money for your child. So why are you telling me to go take out the parent loan? And so you do have the right to go back and appeal any situation that's not accurate in your award letter. But sometimes people get the award letter and they think it's gospel truth, that they look at it and they just go, oh, well, I got to do this. And so, no, you can appeal your situation, because they do make errors. And lately, for the last year or so, for some reason, they've been leaving out work study. I don't know why they've been leaving out work study, but they tell people, oh, you're eligible for work study, but you got to go and do this. And I know students who were eligible for work study and didn't even know how to go about getting on their campus and never got it because they didn't know what to do. They kind of fell through the crack. So this is the kind of stuff you need to know and be educated about. And don't be intimidated by, asking questions and finding out, well, I can't afford this. What else can you do for me? So don't be afraid to do that. Okay. All right. So what's next after the FAFSA? You need to view and print your confirmation email. That's important. Students, the email is going to your email. Okay. When you get that email, you need to ship it over to your parents. Okay. It's particularly this year. Determine your student aid index, which is going to be on there. Determine your Pell Grant eligibility, which is going to be on there. Confirm the student loan amount, which is going to be the $5,500 that's going to be there. And so look for an email after 2 days regarding the FAFSA submission summary, because after 2 days, you should be able to go back into the FAFSA and print out this FAFSA submission summary and look, making sure it's accurate and that you have everything correct. If you need to make it any errors, and check for verification. Verification is the process where not as many applications will be selected for verification with this new process. It's not anything bad or anything, but what it does, it allows that for some people, they'll pull their application and ask for documentation of some information. If you have an error on your FAFSA, you may get selected for verification. So that's why it's important to look at this form and don't let it sit there, because students have done that in the past. And and then they wonder, I didn't get my award letter. I didn't get this. That's because you didn't read it. And they told you needed to have some information that was not submitted. And so that's very important that they do that. That's really, really important. FAFSA tips. These are some of my tips that I think should be helpful. I tell people, you're supposed to give the FAFSA on the day. Well, the day that you sit down to do the FAFSA is the day you're supposed to report your income. So I tell people, do it on the day when you spend all your money. You done paid the rent. There's nothing hardly in the checking account. You paid all your bills. That's what you use to do the FAFSA. Okay. Students should not have a large savings account in their name. All right. If there should be somebody else on the account, but they shouldn't have a whole bunch of money, because they're going to penalize the student in terms of how they calculate them higher than the parents. Call the 800 number. Call them for support. They'll help you. They'll walk you through everything. Check the college financial aid website to determine if additional forms are required. Because if you haven't submitted some form, even if they've given you a merit-based scholarship, if you still have forms out there, they're not going to award you your letter until you do that. So that's very important. And the other thing is, if you're selected for verification and you don't know it because you didn't look at the form, if they've offered you a nice merit-based scholarship, you will not get that money either until that verification information is submitted. So that's really important. Review and print your FAFSA summary submission form. Give parental consent, stay engaged, and communicate. By giving parental consent, I know this is not the time for your 18-year-old. I know they're grown, but this is not the year for them to be, I'm taking care of it, I'm doing it, and they're not communicating with you. This is not the year to do that, particularly when it comes to the financial aid aspect. And so students need to make sure that they're communicating with their parent, that they're sharing information that they're getting from the government with their parent. I know students who've gotten, scholarships and they didn't share it with their parents from different schools because I guess they felt like, I don't want to go there. But with the FAFSA, if you're 18, you can give permission for your parent to discuss your financial aid. And that's what I would highly recommend you do, particularly for this year with all these changes. If you're 17, you can probably get by with it, but for 18 for sure, you need to give parental permission, consent to discuss your FAFSA, because that's going to make your life a lot easier because it's just too many changes and you don't want to fall through the crack. Okay. So there's just some resources from my blog, ScholarshopMom.org. Take a photo of this because this is the information how you can apply for your FSA ID and what you need to know about the new FAFSA, just some basic information there. So make sure you, those of you who are seniors, need to go ahead and get that done as soon as possible. Getting help with the FAFSA, we've got FAFSA.gov. There's an 800 number. The website, the go-to website is studentaid.gov, and they are doing a much better job, especially with the new stuff. If you go on there, you'll see all kind of information about the new FAFSA. They've updated it, and they're still updating stuff. They also have a federal student aid estimator, which means that you can go to that site and actually put in your income, get an idea of what you might be eligible for the federal government. It could give you an idea of whether you're going to get that Pell Grant. So that's very helpful. And, you guys have the California Student Aid Commission. You should always take advantage of what your state, and I was on their website. I was very impressed with them because they're very similar to Illinois. You have a pro-education governor, and they make sure that there's all kinds of support, videos, all kinds of information to help you with the new FAFSA. And people, you can do, they have websites and webinars and workshops. So make sure you go there and get that information. This is where you should be getting your information, not from your neighbor down the street or you heard somebody. And even counselors can give out inaccurate information. And so it's very important that you know where to go to verify stuff. If you have any questions about something, you can, email me or whatever. I'll be glad to answer, because I think it's just too much stuff floating out there that's not accurate, and it's going to cause you some problems. So this is a federal financial aid boot camp that's occurring by the federal government tomorrow. You can select what topics you want to do, how they're going to do, how to prepare for the 2024 FAFSA form. And these are the times, and they're actually going to show you the form and walk through it at 3 to 4 that time. You can make that. But if you can't make these, sign up anyway, because they will send you the video. If you can't make it at that particular time. And then they have one for student loan borrowers who are currently in repayment. And on Thursday, they're doing how to select the best college using the college scorecard. And then another prototype of the FAFSA, and another one on student loan borrowers. So you can select which ones you want to do. And I think Mr. Dr. Files will have a link, because this doesn't have the link, but if you go to there, I think he's going to put that in the chat. You can actually access this link to that, but it's going to be tomorrow and Thursday of this week. This is my contact information, and that's how you can contact me. And I hope that I was able to fulfill my goal of helping you become a little more aware and a little more ready for the FAFSA. It really is going to be a much more streamlined process, easy to follow, but the key thing is what you need to do before you sit down to do it, and understanding, getting all your paperwork together and getting who's going to do what, and everybody's in agreement. So that's going to be critical, because if not, I can see how those issues can be barriers for people not being able to do the FAFSA. And I'm on social media, so you can get my latest information. I will have the latest information. And just for you seniors, once again, you need to complete your FSID as soon as possible. Start researching and applying for college institutional scholarships. Those are usually due between the November 1st or the November 15th. And so you still got time to go back and check to see if you can get some additional grant money and start researching outside scholarships. And so I'd like to thank the staff of the Los Angeles Sigmas for this opportunity. And I hope you feel that you are FAFSA ready. Any questions?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I know we had
Wonderful,
a couple
wonderful.
of questions that came in as folks were watching. Um, this one here will show on screen from Brother Javon Moore. As a group of educated men, how do we get a lower EFC number when we need to show our assets? So, what's the key in getting that lower EFC number?
Well, it's not. Well, the FAFSA is about not how much money you make. It's about what happens to your money. And everybody's situation is different. So it's not like, well, it just depends upon where you are financially. I can't give like a specific. It's not like, oh, this is how you get a low EFC, because everybody's situation financially is unique. It depends on whether you could be taking care of an aging parent, or you could be doing this, or you could have a health issue, or you could have expenses that are usual. Oh, one of the other things I wanted to say too is that if your situation financially, everything, a lot can happen in 2 years. So if your financial situation has changed, there will be a place on the application for you to be able to correct that or update it, because it's been 2 years. People lose jobs, things happen. We got a lot of people getting laid off, and so that's really important. But it's not like, oh, this is how you get a low EFC. Or now but see, I probably could have addressed that last year, but because the formula has changed and it's new, I haven't really, I have to see a pattern. I haven't, so I don't really know. Because before they had specific areas where if you make so much money, you could tell, okay, I usually could ask people how much money you're making. Well, you're not going to qualify for this, you're not going to qualify for that. But I can't do that anymore, because one of the reasons for the change in the FAFSA really was to allow more middle income families to qualify for federal aid, because that's the group that was suffering. We have something for the low income people. The wealthy people can take care of their kids, but it was that middle income group that was suffering. So this new formula is probably going to allow more families to become Pell Grant eligible, but I can't really say, I don't know, because it's new.
That's a great point. Actually, I had one of my brothers to text me, and they said, well, most educated men and most of our families, we're in a space where we're making greater than 60,000, commonly. But one of the things my wife likes to say is that we make just enough to be disqualified, but not enough to be able to fully foot the bill. You know what I mean? And I think you just addressed that, the fact that a lot of us are in that kind of like that middle income range where, you make so much money where you don't quite qualify, but then you don't have enough resources to fully pay for the education, which kind of often puts us in a difficult situation. But hopefully
But
the FAFSA, like you stated, go ahead.
right. But the thing is, if you probably knew from freshman year, well, when your child was born, that maybe they weren't going to qualify for Pell Grant. Okay,
That's
if you're
kind
in
of
that
true.
situation, that means your money has to come from a different pot, and that pot is merit, because merit money has nothing to do with income. So if you're, so in your family, maybe if you're making more money than would make you eligible to getting federal money, then that means you have to focus on, the students' academics, what they bring to the table. That's why we tell kids do well in school, get the 3.0 or higher, make sure you're involved in something, develop your leadership ability, do extracurricular, volunteer, and those things. And if you go and look at the scholarships that are merit based, they don't care how much money you make. It's all about what the student brings to the table academically, and so we see that with the athletes. I always give the example of, Snoop Dogg's son when he went to UCLA to play football, and people are like, well, he got a scholarship, and they're like, well, how about they give him a scholarship? And so that's not the point. The point is because of his talent and because of his merit, that had nothing to do with income. And that's what people don't understand. So, I'm really big on helping people, even with middle school families, understand the importance of being involved in their child's education early so that they're ready for high school and that they're ready to pursue, academically and do well and be value their education and take it seriously and do as well, because that's where the money comes from. That's why, we have these kids take the PSAT, because that identifies certain groups of kids who can be eligible for scholarship in preparation for the SAT. But those standardized test scores is another route to get money. And that's why people pay tons of money to have their kids prepping and all that. But so your student would have to be doing well. If you're in that high income category, then your focus is to make sure they do well academically, and then
All
they can
excellent
tap into
points.
that money.
Perfect. Well, I know that we're coming close to time. We had a couple of great questions. One thing that I did want to ask you specifically before we leave this broadcast is I know that the Los Angeles Sigmas gives out scholarships every year. Be on the lookout for that coming. That application should probably open up sometime around mid-February or so. So be on the lookout for that. But in your opinion, as someone that is advising folks on completing the FASFA and all these different things, when is the best time for a student to get these funds in, right? That makes it easy for them to navigate a document like the FASFA. Should they have their money in hand at the start of school? Should they apply year round for scholarships? What's going to make this process, in terms of managing documents like this easier for a student?
So your question is, when should they prepare themselves to get ready for scholarship? Is that the question?
Not necessarily prepare for a scholarship, but in the ideal world, right? When a school is looking at your need and all that, should all of your scholarships be in the bucket already, right? Or can you get scholarships throughout the year? What's gonna make it easier for a student to process?
Well, they can apply. They can apply. They should be applying as we speak, but they can continue to apply, throughout their college years. But even, you can apply for stuff all summer. There are a lot of scholarship deadlines that are due in the summer, because anything you bring from an outside organization will allow you, anything you can still send that in, and they will, particularly if you've taken out a loan, you can say, put this on my loan so that you can cancel out your loan. And so there's no limit. The sky's the limit. And I'm just, I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I'm gonna tell you, there are more scholarships out there than you got time to apply for, but you got to find the right ones. And you got to, it's a strategy to even understanding, which ones you apply for, because that's something that, the counselors are telling the students, well, you should be following, you should be applying for a scholarship. And the parents are telling the students, you should be applying for scholarships, but nobody's told them how to do it. Okay. It's a strategy to that. And that's why they get frustrated. And so you got kids just, parents that say, oh, you got to do 10 scholarships, find 10 scholarships a week. So they get online and they just start doing stuff. They just be doing anything just to fit the quota. And then they wonder, well, I didn't really get anything. I haven't heard. I've been applying. Or they apply for the ones that are like the lottery. You just put your name in and hope that they call your name and stuff like that. So there's a whole strategy. And I guess I'm working myself up to the fact that I have a workshop called The Secrets to Finding Scholarships, where I go into more depth about how you do that, because there is a strategy to that. And you don't want to be wasting your time and just knowing where to go, because it's very overwhelming. It is, the internet is just full of stuff. And, the kids are on Instagram. They're on Instagram The parents are on Facebook. You know, I put stuff on Facebook, and I've got stuff on Instagram too. But there are so much scholarship information on Instagram. It's ridiculous. And I tell students, did you know you can find scholarships on Instagram? And they're like, really? Yeah, you can. You know, all you got to do is go in the search box. I'm telling you. And the other thing is, the little tip is, every scholarship organization has a social media presence. FASFA, scholarships.com. They're all on Twitter. They're all on Instagram. So you can just follow them. I mean, you don't need to be like, you got to have a strategy to figure out how to do it. But, we're in the age of social media. And, I tell people all the time, they say, well, is there a scholarship for this? And I'm just like, I'm not really sure, but you know what? There's a thing out there called Google, and you can Google it and see what you find. And so they seem like not to know how to be empowered when it comes to that process. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that they haven't been taught, or they haven't been shown early enough the benefits that can be reaped by doing this. And so that you have that opportunity to do it and feel empowered to do it and want to do it, which is the key.
That's right.
Miss Brenda, your workshop that's coming up, and I know we're almost at time. Your workshop that's coming up, we'd be glad to promote that if you will allow us to. And is there a fee associated with your workshop?
Well, that particular one I can do. I can do a virtual one, but my next one actually is an in-person one here in Illinois. But I'll still be glad if you guys want to have me come back and do that one. But I think that's a really important one, because kids nobody tells them how to do this stuff, but yet they're expected to do it, and that's why they don't do it. They get frustrated.
Well, we're looking forward then, we'll try to, we'll not try. We're going to get back in touch with you, both Dr. Files and I. We'll make a reconnect. We'll find a way to accommodate all of our schedules so that we can get this information out. Once again, because it's being live streamed, we will be adding this to our web resources where parents can go and, go back and revisit this information. But we're looking forward to kind of reconnecting with you and making sure that our education and our region and our fraternity is well informed, and the parents that are connected to our organizations are well informed on how to get these monies and resources so that they can help their children to be successful in school. So we're looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, I'm here. I'm willing to help because I want to get the word out too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. We'll see everyone on the next one.